Good.
Hello, tonight is the evening of June 21st, 1996. This is Grandma's 84th birthday. She was born in 1912 in Sitka, Alaska. We thought this would be a good opportunity to review some of the things in Grandma's life as she lived in Alaska through the years. And we've got tonight a series of pictures that Grandma took the time that she got her camera in about 1944 through the early 1950s. It sets forth a lot of pictures and things in our lives and in Grandma and Grandpa's lives in Alaska. And this is going to be made into a video. Don has set it all up, and we hope that this will be a chance to show a little bit about Grandma and Grandpa's life in Alaska from the early 1940s through the mid-1950s. And so I think we're about ready to start and go with the rest of the show. Should we stop this film? This is Alice Bromley Rice on her 84th birthday, and she's going to be the narrator of the show tonight. She's not the only player and important person in the show. The other one is our father, Harold Wilson Rice, and he's 82, almost 82, 81 now, and we'll have a birthday in August. Grandpa and Grandma met each other in Alaska. They were married in Seattle and then went back to Alaska, where they made life for the first 6 to 8 years of their married life, almost the first 10 years. In that time, I was born, and our brother Clark was born. Our brother Lauren was born. And a number of those years were in Sitka. Some were earlier in Wasilla, Palmer, and in the Matanuska Valley, where Grandpa took a lead in developing the Matanuska Project. This was a major government project in Alaska in the years right before World War II and in the years thereafter. And Grandpa had an opportunity to work with a number of farmers as they started the farms that are still there in Alaska. And Grandma was working as a teacher in Wasilla during those years, and I think over in Palmer too. And it was while Mom was in Palmer and Dad was there too that they met each other, and that started a romance that was spread out during World War II. And it took a few years, but finally the war began to slow down, and they had an opportunity to get together in Seattle and get married. So what we're going to do tonight is to show a number of pictures that Grandma took with her camera over the years, and we'll ask some questions of Grandma as she's narrating, and we hope that this will be a project that will give not only our generation of the brothers, Ken, Clark, Lauren, and Don, and our sister Helen as well, and all of their children, the grandchildren of Grandpa and Grandma here, a chance to know a little bit about that Alaska history, which has been such a big part of their lives, and we've all been touched by it too. We've heard the Alaska stories, and some of us have had a chance to go to Alaska and see it and be there. And I can tell you that it's just as nice then and now as it was then. So let's get right to it, and we'll have Grandma tell us all about it. We're starting the pictures with the historical perspective. The first picture is a picture of our Grandpa.
No, you gotta start over. This was
Testing. 1, 2, 3, testing. Okay, I'm getting the idea here now. See, we're gonna have to speak real close here, Mom. So you can try it.
Okay, I can hear.
We will move the mic back and forth so we can hear.
Okay, you're rolling.
This is the start of our narrative tonight. The first picture is a picture of our Grandpa Rice. This is Harold Rice's father, Clark C. Rice. Picture taken in Iowa. Do you know when that was taken, Mom?
I don't know when it was taken, but we don't have very much.
You're not talking to the mic enough.
What we are, we're right into it.
But I thought
There
that
you
we
go.
ought to have a picture of him to start with. This Grandpa Harold Rice with Lauren.
Where was that taken?
Well, we were on a picnic at the beach at Sitka. And,
We got something wrong with the mic here.
oh, it looks like Lauren's about over a year old, so it must be about 45 years.
About 45 years ago. Lauren was born in Sitka in 1950, I believe.
As Lauren was born in 1950. This is at the farm at Sitka, where out at the dairy where we had the dairy. Lost again. This is Ken and Clark.
Which is which?
Ken's on the left and Clark's on the right.
Can you go back to that picture again? Clark, the handsome guy in the blue sweater there, has got a red Dumbo toy in his hand. And we had that Dumbo toy around the farm, both in Sitka and in Skagit County, well up until I think we were all grown. That old Dumbo was in the bottom drawer in the toy drawer in the kitchen at the farm. Do you remember that, Mom?
Yes, it stayed there a long time. It was a pretty good Dumbo.
It looks like he has a black eye.
Does Clark have a black eye? Oh, just a shadow. So that must mean that Clark and I got along real good. Is that right?
At times.
Here's another picture of a sunny day in Alaska. Can you tell us who these people are?
We were celebrating somebody's birthday this time. On the right is Chuck Yaw. Father was the superintendent at the junior college. And it's Ken, and then the little Doig boy. He was son of one of the missionaries at the school, too. This is Ken trying to dig clams. We were out on one of our picnics. This is the Sitka.
At Sitka, we lived out of town a ways on a small farm that was right on the beach, and it also had a creek that ran through the farm called Sawmill Creek. And I think we took picnics just right down on the edge of the beach, or sometimes we'd go into Sitka and get Grandpa and Grandma Bromley and go to one of the beaches around Sitka. Sitka is a beautiful place with lots of beaches, and were there a lot of clams to dig there around there, Mom?
Yes, a lot of clams. Out that same picnic, I think, and the kids are playing in the water. So the tide comes in, they lose the place to dig clams. But talking now, it's a range of mountains there at Sitka.
Looks like the guys are in their underwear. Is that the way we usually played on the beach when we were going to get in the water?
Yeah. This was Ken when he was little. This is for that. This was in Palmer when we were at the extensions, the experimental station for a while.
Was there some significance of that blanket that was underneath? Wasn't that around for a long time?
Oh, it's still around. This is down at the dock at Sitka. You can see the airplane in the background. Harold was going to make a trip to Juneau, and so we were down to say goodbye to him.
In those days, how did you travel in Alaska? Are there roads and highways to travel between cities?
No, this was very modern. We had airplane to travel on. There's no way of having a road between Sitka and Juneau. Had to go by plane or boat. And it was a lot quicker to go by plane. And again, he's our oldest boy, so he gets lots of pictures. And it was wintertime out at the dairy. He's going to help shovel snow. We celebrated the 4th of July at Sitka. And Ken on the right, and his friend, one of the Doig boys, is on the left. And they decorated their tricycles and were in the parade. That was a big event. This is Grandpa Bromley and with Ken. And they were, I think, trying to start a fire for a picnic. This is a boat out in Silver Bay. And the herring would come in real thick, and they'd like to catch a lot of the herring. They used a lot of the herring for bait for other fishing too. Silver Bay was a good place to catch the fish. So here's Lauren with Grandma Bromley.
This was taken in Sitka, was it?
This was in Sitka.
Looks like Lauren must have been 10 months to a year old in that picture, do you think?
I'd guess about that. I think they were playing peekaboo. Grandma was great at playing peekaboo with Lauren. Did you put something over his head? Peekaboo.
Now, that was Martha Bromley, your mother. And about how old was she when this picture was taken?
And in her 70s. Late 70s. Harold with his 2 boys, Ken and Clark.
Again, it's a picnic on the beach.
The picnics were the big thing. When your good day came, you dropped everything and went on a picnic. That was our entertainment. Picnics.
Do I see a mustache on Grandpa there?
Oh, Dad belonged to the Rotary Club there in Sitka, and every summer, about the 4th of July, they would grow a mustache. Grow whiskers, and anyway, he had to be in on that too.
Grandpa's wearing wire-rimmed glasses there, and was he ahead of his time with the hippies and all that, or was that the style then?
That was the style. Oh, here's the red elephant again.
What is that in Ken's lap? I think I remember seeing that around the farm.
That was a toy that my mother made, a stuffed toy that she made for the kids, kind of a dog-like thing.
Do you remember his name?
I don't remember that.
Was this, here's a picture of Grandpa. This was taken in Sitka, I think, was it not? Do you know where this picture was taken?
It's taken in Sitka. We were leaving Sitka, and this one we were just going out on a vacation, and we took Ken and Clark with us, and Grandma, and my mother and Dad, Grandma and Grandpa Bromley, stayed at the farm and with some other help to run the dairy and take care of Lauren. And while we were gone on that trip, Lauren came down with the measles and got pretty sick, and made it real hard for my mother.
You said that you went outside on that trip. What do you mean by going outside?
Oh, we always said you went to outside. You went to the States. Alaska was a territory at that time. And we always talked about going outside to the States. This picture is in front of the house we had at the dairy. And Harold and one of the men that helped us at the dairy at the time.
Tell us about that house. Can you describe where the rooms were? We're looking at the front door there. How did the house, was it laid out?
It was just a tiny little house, and that was the only door. And then you went right into the kitchen. And the kitchen and dining room were all in one. And then the back part of that now would be where they, kind of a small living room and the bedrooms. And there was a little upstairs to it. And if we could have.
This is a picture, I'm going to ask you some questions about it. First of all, it's a picture of three children for the first time we've seen all three, and maybe you can tell us why we took this picture. But also, there's buildings in the background here, and can you tell us what that's about and what part that played in your life as you were growing up?
This is after Lauren was born, and I think it was a Sunday after church, and we were over on the SJS campus, and those are some of the school buildings. And there are more buildings there now. The building kind of behind me on the right here was the small boys' dorm. And then the long building behind Harold was the general building where they had offices and classrooms.
Now, SJS stands for Sheldon Jackson College. And was that, can you tell us about that, how it was started and what its name was? I think that Grandpa Bromley was associated with the college when you first went to Alaska, when Grandpa Bromley first went to Alaska. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Dad wasn't really associated with the campus, except that he was the minister for the campus. Dad had the two churches. There were two Presbyterian churches there, one for the white people and one for the natives. And it was that way all the time that Dad was there. And then Dad had the school as part of the native church.
So he was as a pastor in Sitka. Did he preach in the native language?
That's why there were the two churches. In the white church, he didn't. He just spoke in English there. But at the native church, he always had an interpreter, because the people like to hear the message in their own language.
Well, you can tell us some stories about that, but we'll do that another time. But here's the next picture with Grandpa and Grandma Bromley, I believe, and you folks. Could you take a minute and just tell us what was going on here and where this was taken, and anything else about the event? Look at the beautiful flowers in the background.
This is taken at Eklutna. And Eklutna was a government school not far from Palmer. This was during the war, and during the war, some of the schools were closed and taken over by the army. The school at Seward was closed, and then they closed Eklutna School too. But and then Grandma, before the school was closed, my folks retired from the mission at Hoonah and came out to visit me at Palmer. And then they got asked to be helping down at the Eklutna Government School. So they went down and worked down there for a while until the Eklutna School was closed. But then they stayed on as caretakers for the property that was left there. And this was when we came to visit them one time after.
Who's that in the picture?
That's Harold and Ken, me, Grandma and Grandpa Brown. This is Ken and Clark out fishing in Sawmill Creek. And they've got bent pins for fish hooks, but well, they have a good time fishing.
There were so many fish in that creek when the salmon would run that they would be just almost shore to shore. And when little boys would walk out in the creek, the salmon would knock you down in the water. Remember that? You'd always tell us not to get out in the creek because the fish would knock us down. The fish were as big as we were almost, I think.
Well, pretty near, and the current in the water was so swift too. That they had to be careful. This is Lauren. Let's take it on the campus. Those are campus buildings. In Sitka. I think we saw this picture before.
Well, that's because there's two handsome guys in it.
Here's Grandpa with Lauren out at the dairy farm.
This is a good picture of Reverend Eugene Bromley, your father. And would you tell us just a little bit about where he was born and grew up and how he came to be in Alaska?
Grandpa was born in Minnesota on a farm. Grew up on this farm. And they were youngsters. They attended the Claremont Church. And it was there that he decided that he wanted to be a missionary. They're talking now. There was another fellow in the same Sunday school class that he was in that wanted to be missionaries too. And so they both were very good friends and then went on to school and they finished college and went on, had 3 years of seminary. And then Dad was going to go to Africa, but at the time he was ready to go, they weren't accepting any missionaries in Africa. So the board asked him if he would go to Alaska instead of going to Africa. He thought it over for a while and decided, well, he would do that since he couldn't go into Africa. He'd go to Alaska for a while. And so he just got persuaded my mother to marry him, and then they went to Alaska on their honeymoon.
What year was that?
That was 1908. We went right to Sitka.
This is a picture of Grandpa, Harold, and Clark on the beach at Sitka too, I believe. Is that right?
Sitka. That's Sitka.
It says two guys in a brand new red wagon. What was the occasion? Was it a new wagon? Does it look like in that picture?
New wagon, and we had to put a box in there to hold the Clark up because he couldn't sit good enough in the wagon. Even at that, he could fall out. But
This is a birthday picture. Do you know whose birthday we're celebrating here?
that's Grandma Bromley's birthday. We're celebrating.
Where was this picture taken?
That was at our little house at the farm. At the dairy farm in Sitka. The boys have their tricycles decorated for the 4th of July parade.
Is this taken out at the farm?
After they got them ready to go in, they went into town.
How much grass was there? Was it a big farm? How much land was there for that dairy farm?
There wasn't any, it was just very little land for the cows to graze on. We had to ship them all the hay and feed for them. We're celebrating a birthday again, and it happened to be a nice day, so we had it outdoors.
There's a building in the background. Was that a garage, or what did you use that building for on the farm?
Well, that was just storage for us, but it was one of the original buildings that they lived in before they built the house we lived in.
When did you and Grandpa go to the farm in Sitka? Can you tell us just a little bit about your when you were married in Seattle in 1945, and where did you go from there?
Harold was still in the Army then, and we had to go up to, we stayed in Seattle for just a couple of months, 3 months, I think. Then he was transferred to Fairbanks, and I wasn't supposed to go with him, but since Alaska was my home, I got to go home. And so I just went home and went to Fairbanks too. And then Harold worked at the extension office for the university up there for a while. And then he decided that he wanted to go into business for himself, so we got the dairy down in Sitka.
What year was it?
You must have been about 5 years old, so it must have been 5.
Must have gone to Sitka in about 1947, early 1948, because Clark was born in Sitka in 1948, wasn't he? Okay, can you tell us, here's a picture of a mountain scenery. How was this taken and where was it taken from?
Well, Dad was on one of his trips with the extension office, and they were in McKinley National Park, and this is one of the pictures of goats up there in the park.
Was that taken from the mountain? So Grandpa climbed the top of that mountain? No?
I don't know, you have to ask him. I don't know where he was.
Boats. Tell us where this is and what part boats played in your life in Alaska.
Well, there are boats at Sitka again, these boats. Those days, there weren't very many airplanes, and so life depended on the boats. You did all your traveling on boats. This is another picnic on the beach with Grandpa and Grandma. Ken's all dressed up in the new coveralls that his dad had brought from Juneau with him. This is Clark, enjoying his apple, it looks like. Another picture of Ken and Clark.
It's like a crib in the background. Was that at the farm in Sitka?
Out of the dairy. And Clark was small enough, he slept in the crib.
Who slept in the crib?
Clark. Clark.
That thing he's leaning on looks familiar.
Yeah, there's some furniture in this picture. The stand that Clark is leaning on. Do we still have that around?
Yeah, we still have that, and the one that's got the door, one door open, one door shut, we still have that at our house. Those two pieces were made by the students at the school, at Shelton Jackson School. That's Uncle Clark, or that's Clark. Must have been about little 2, 3, something like that. 2 years old. But that was a big deal to have the new clothes. Didn't go shopping very often.
Recording.
Okay, we're proceeding here.
Oh, who pushes the button?
Are we ready? I've got the button. Now, we're practicing here, so we'll go for a minute. Look at that picture. There's snow in the background. Was there a lot of snow in Sitka, Mom?
Well, this snow looks like it's springtime, it's dirty. You can see it looks like it's going off, it must be spring.
That means it's been on the ground for some time.
Yes,
When would the snow come in the fall?
well, you never knew, it just,
Here's a picture of a birthday party. Can you tell us where that is?
we're celebrating Grandma Brahma's birthday at Sitka. And, looks like we're having strawberries and cake.
What kind of cake did Grandma Brownlee like for a birthday cake?
She was real fond of angel food, and I made a lot of angel food cakes about that time, because public health people said that you should give the babies egg yolks. And so they didn't want them to have the whites because they thought they would get different allergies from the whites. And so I'd save the whites of the eggs and make angel food cakes. So we had quite a few angel food cakes from so many babies.
Do some of those dishes look familiar?
Yeah, I think we still have this one.
Who are these two guys?
This is Clark and Candy.
Hey, now there's a good picture. What's happening here?
I don't know just what's happening, but I'm afraid that balloon's gonna burst. But I'm interested in that washing machine. During the war, when Kim was born, we couldn't find a washing machine at all. I had to wash diapers by hand, and no washing machines. And I had my name on the list for a new washing machine. There's always somebody ahead of me on the list, so I didn't get a washing machine for quite a while. And this is the machine that I got. It was an easy machine, and that was the name of the brand.
Did that come from Sears Roebuck?
No, it wasn't a Sears Roebuck one. It was in the hardware store here in Fairbanks. But I took it down to Citroen's.
Looks like Uncle Clark was having fun.
I think he's pulling their hair.
Okay.
We had to put a box on the wagon to put Clark in. He couldn't sit up straight enough, sit in the wagon.
That looks like clotheslines out in the back there.
Yeah, and the snow's up to about the top of that fence too. See the fence at the top of the snow?
Yeah, to the left of the picture.
The clothespins on the clothesline there.
Mhm. There's another picture of two handsome guys. Looks like sometimes you take pictures with the sun coming in the windows.
I think the sun was coming in. We had a nice big window in the house there. And then I used the light from when the sun was shining in to take that picture. All bundled up to play in the snow.
Did we get out in the snow a lot when we were kids?
Oh, you just love playing in the snow. And you worked hard shoveling. Dad had to do a lot of shoveling of snow to get the car out when he were to deliver the milk. And he'd shovel and shovel, and you would shovel and shovel. You worked hard to keep the road open so you could get out.
How deep would the snow get?
Well, sometimes it got real deep. I think there's a picture coming up pretty soon showing more on how deep it was.
Where was this?
And this was just up the driveway a little ways.
So there was thick forest close to the.
All big trees right around. Wasn't very good dairy country. This is the location of the youth camp at Haynes. Grandpa was one that gave the land for this camp.
It's Grandpa Brahman. Your father?
Yes,
What's the camp called?
it's called Rainbow Glacier Camp.
How come?
Because there's a real pretty glacier up on the mountain beside the camp there. When the ice breaks off, you can hear it roar down through the little canyon.
Is that what we see straight ahead in the middle of the picture?
Yes.
And
There's a nice beach. This the water that you see there is part of the Chilkat River, and it's at the mouth of the Chilkat River, so that there's a tide there. The tide comes in and out. Wonderful beach for the camp. And out on the right is a little peninsula, and out on that camp, the peninsula, they've built a chapel, an open air chapel that they use for the camp. This is more the scenery around Ames, the mountains, and part of the Chilkat River.
when was this taken?
Must have been the fall because of the fall colors and there's fresh snow in the mountains.
About what year? Was it taken before you were married?
No, I don't think so. I think this is a later picture. This is the Martin Manson's ranch. And it's right across the bay from Rainbow Glacier Camp. And we used to take the Haynes House kids out to to Martin Manson's place there for picnics occasionally.
Did you live in Ames when you were a girl?
Yes, lived in Haynes for 7 years.
How old were you when you went to Ames?
I went to Haynes when I was about 12 years old. And that's, before that I had homeschooling. And after we went to Haynes, there was a school that I could go to. So I went to public school and then went out to 4 years of high school there, but it was just 12 of us in high school. It was not an accredited high school, so when I went to college, I had to go on probation. And this is another scene in the bay there at the Rainbow Glacier campus, looking in the opposite direction.
When you were growing up, your grandfather was a missionary in Alaska, and you moved from town to town. And you were born in Sitka, weren't you?
I was born in Sitka. That was their first station was in Sitka in 1908. And then after we were there for 5 years, and then I moved to Clark, and we were missionaries in Clark for 7 years. And that's where I was homeschooled, and then we went up to Haynes after that.
And then from there, where did serve?
Well, after my mother and I were through school off to college, Dad took the church of Puna, and he was there for a while. At Clark, I remember doing roads for notary going around. It was like always had a mission boat called the Tornado. And we would spend a lot of time living behind the Tornado, going from one fish camp, from one shanty to another camp. And then when we went to Haynes, we didn't need the boat. But when we went back to Hula, we had another boat. We got a boat that was called the Ada Winston. It was a much better boat than the bigger boat and bigger water boat and more water boat. This was the map is the Haynes. This was built while we were there. When we first went to Haynes, we had a little cabin. That was log cabin. It was log cabin built onto it. It wasn't there. That's like that's so Christian Barney is Christian Barney is Mass. You were real time. This is the town of Haynes. Haynes in the background. The mission buildings are here on the left. Here on the left. Two big buildings, and then to the right of them, is the church. The church this go up there and talking. We were going. This is looking out, to the, towards the evening, instead of the north and east, I think. And, towards, this is looking down on Juneau, and you'll see a bridge that goes across over to Douglas. And there was an old mine over there on the Douglas side that flooded early years. So the town was for there.
Looks like the tide was out.
Yeah, that's what the lights are. So, and that's looking the other direction of Gaston Channel.
And it looks like quite a hill we had to climb there.
Real hill. It's more of Gaston Channel from that's looking across at Douglas. Closer to Douglas. This is Juneau. You can see the big building in the middle there that doesn't have a roof on it. They had a big fire over there, one of the hotels, and they just left that flame there after the fire. It was kind of an eyesore in Juneau for a long time. Here's my dad. He was out on the boat.
You know which boat that was?
Now this was at Hoona. This is he's on the Livingston.
How old was he in that picture, Grandma?
Oh, shoot, I think
You know about what year this picture was taken?
exactly it was in college. It was, written close to the 40s, I guess. Must have been about that time.
Before World War II.
I finished college in 35, and they were at Hoona at that time. It could have been earlier than that. It could have been in the late 30s. You can see the marking lights on the right hand there, where my camera started to leak after it had its ducking.
I remember that tie tack from Grandpa Brown wore that
There's a little
for
piece of
years and
ivory.
years.
There's a little piece of ivory on it. This is Mother and Dad at Hoona with Elephant Mountain in the back. And, they have a little outboard motor that can drive to the little rowboat. Picnic at the beach again. Oh, there's my basket. See the basket in the foreground here? While I was in college, I went down to Oklahoma to visit one of the teachers that had been up at Ames. And she gave me this basket made by the Indians down in Oklahoma. And she knew my mother would love that basket. Well, I had to take it to college. I didn't want to take that basket to college. Like it was somehow just rubbed me the wrong way. But I got it and I put it in the storeroom at college until it was time for me to go home. And then I had to get that basket out again. Well, I had to change trains in Minneapolis. And so I put that basket in one of those places where you can, little cubby holes where you can put things and lock them up while you go and do something else. And then you come back and get your baggage and lock something out. Well, I stuck it in there. And then it didn't work very good, so I left it on the bench again the next time. And hoping somebody would swipe it. And nobody swiped it. So I had to take it on the train with me again. And I finally got it up to Grandma, and she loved it. So it was worth it after all. So here she's got it on.
Looks like a pretty good dog over there. Do you remember that dog?
That wasn't our dog, that was Mrs. Robinson's, she was one of the school teachers at Hoona. And that's their dog. And here's my mother with Mrs. Robinson in our yard at Hoona. And
My mother was great on raising flowers. She had dahlias and pansies and all kinds of pretty flowers. And we had strawberries there too. And they became real good friends. And at whom
The house over to the right was the,
that was the manse where the folks lived.
is that the house that burned down?
Yes, when the town of Houma burned, that burned.
In 1989, your grandsons, Evan and Clark, helped to build a new manse right on that same piece of property that sits right there looking out on that same view. And that house is now called the Martha Bromley House.
Grandma's having some strawberry shortcake for the Robinsons. This is Mrs. Robinson's daughter that came up to visit.
This is in
This
Houma?
is in Houma. So that's sideways. I didn't get in the camera. It was supposed to be the totem poles. And those burned up in the fire at Houma too.
Did Grandpa have an opportunity to collect some native art?
He wasn't very much at collecting. My mother liked to collect a few pieces more than my dad did. He didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings or anything. He was very much afraid of making the people feel that it wasn't right somehow. There was some more I could hear. There was that my mother had collected some totem poles and baskets and things, but they all went in the fire. This is the view from the front porch of that house in Houma. And you can see the clouds coming and going over the island. And that island was called the Graveyard Island. That's where they would take the bodies of the people that died and bury them over there on that island. And you can see that it's low tide in this picture, and it was quite early in the morning. And we have the next picture, it shows well, that one's upside down. How that worked. Anyway, you can imagine we've got it other side up. That's the boats tied up at the
Okay. Go ahead, Mom.
you can see Graveyard Island real plain closer by there, and you can see that it's low tide at the dock. And then the next picture should show this is still low tide at the dock, and you can see the gangplank that goes from the float up to the dock, and you can see the building up on the dock. And then the next picture should be 6 hours later at high tide. And you show this to people back in Missouri, and they can't understand that. This is on the way, we're making a trip into Juneau with the minister, I happen to be home in the summertime. And this is one of the ladies that was with me.
What does she do?
She's in the rowboat, the lifeboat on the back of the,
Oh, okay.
let's see. These are the Eklutna school buildings and some of the children at the school before they closed the school. And I think one of the fellows standing up back there is Reg Moody, one of our friends that we go to see here.
That's the gentleman in the civilian clothes with his arms crossed.
They had a real good team of athletic girls. They would do all kinds of stunts. They got to do pretty good. Do all kinds of tricks. The building back there is the depot at the school. Another building of the Eklutna school. And this is my mother with Ken and Ken was kind of tiny. This was when, after the Kootenai school was closed, and Mother and Dad were caretakers there for a while, at a Kootenai. That's some of the other Kootenai buildings that my mother and Ken. There's Red Judy in the middle of and some articles that were visiting there. I don't think Dad was, you're not in that one either. The Grandpa's gone to sleep.
What are those flowers from? Are those delphiniums?
Delphinium.
I didn't know that different big.
They did real well there. Beautiful delphiniums.
Everything grows big in Alaska.
It's Ken when he was tiny. He's a little bit bigger than.
Don't go so fast, Dad. We wanted to look at those too.
And this is Harold at the Kootenai. We went down to visit. Harold was still in the army.
When did he go in the army and what did he do?
We'll have to get into that's wrong. It was while I was at teaching at Palmer, and he went into the army. This is the graveyard just out of the Kootenai a little ways, and it's the Russian Orthodox cemetery. You can see the cross with the slant on it. The Russian Orthodox Church uses that slant bar on their crosses. And the Indians like to build little houses and put over the graves. They still felt that there were spirits that would come back and needed to make them happy. They put good things in those little houses at times. This was taken from my schoolroom window at Palmer. You looked out over Lazy Mountain, and that was the schoolyard. You can see all the little footprints of kids moving around in the snow. That's a group of kids I had one year in school. This was first grade. Got them upside down.
Were those children all in town, or were they traveling a long distance to come to school there?
Yeah, we had to have school buses there. That was the first experience with school buses. And these were the colony kids. They lived out on farms. And they were brought into school. And this is another group of kids that I know.
Is that you there on the right?
That must have been me.
Was this also at Whistle or?
No, this is Palmer. The other groups were Palmer too. I didn't have my camera when I was at Whistle. We used to go up into the mountains, and there were some gold mines up there. It was fun to go up and visit. And this was a group of soldiers with one of the army trucks. This is one of the school teachers that was out on the playground. It was kind of cold, and she was like she's shivering.
Remember the name of the White Mountain in the center?
Lazy Mountain. These are some of the buildings at Palmer. This first building is the dormitory where we stayed, and then over to the right was the school building. You can see the windows from the school buildings.
Was it a 9-month, a year school?
Yes, we taught 9 months. And then one summer I went up to Bristol Bay for the summer. I made more money that one summer out in Bristol Bay than I did teaching school all year.
Did you teach first grade all the time?
At Palmer, I did.
What other grades did you teach?
At Wasilla, I had first, second, and third grade, and a couple of high school classes before. And then at Kenai, I had, I think just my first and second grades there. And then I had some upper grade classes too. They went to high school, but they were upper grade. I taught them there. These are some of the buildings at Palmer, school buildings over here on the left now. And the office where Dad worked, the extension office was right through on the right one. What is it? On this Pioneer Peak that you could see from Palmer.
You got a rifle in somebody's hand?
Yeah, we were out hunting rabbits that day. And we took this. Sun was shining pretty on Pioneer Peak.
Did you have a rifle?
Yeah, I had a little rifle. Single shot 22.
Were you pretty good with it?
Oh, I don't think so. I could get a rabbit though. More of the buildings at Palmer. Pioneer Peak behind you.
Are those phone lines or electric lines?
This was taken when they were putting in rural electrification. That was the first time they had that. I was so happy to get that electricity put in. They got the, where did they get that? Like from Anchorage. They brought it up from Anchorage. There's a big plant down there. And this is my dad came out to visit, and we went out to Max Sherrod's farm and saw some of his things. He was known for growing big cabbages. I think we grew huge cabbages out here. And this is the main part of the town in Palmer. It's kind of muddy streets. The cars would get stuck in the roads there when it would rain. This car belonged to the public health nurse. She had to do quite a bit of traveling, so she had a car. And she was real good about taking different ones of us different places with her when she went. She usually saved her trips to Connect for the weekend when I could go with her. She didn't like to go out there by herself, so she'd wait until I could go with her. We'd take this old car and go out there.
How far a drive was it to connect from Palmer?
Well, it could have been about 12 miles. I may be off on that. I don't know for sure. This was, well, see the water tank there that I climbed up to the top of that one time, took some pictures. This is Pioneer Peak again. And the dormitory down here in the center in the front.
Was that a picture from that water tower?
Yeah, this is a picture from the water tower. There's the water tower. Yeah, the steam is coming out of the whistle, the blue whistle at noon. I kind of like the lighting one night, late in the day, shining like this. And it's kind of an interesting picture with Pioneer Peak behind. We were out on a hike for a weekend and stopped to visit Mrs. Johnson. I had a couple of her kids in school, and so we stopped out to see her. She was always interested in school. Some of them weren't too interested. And the other one's a teacher. The one on the left, lower down, was Harold's secretary. And the girl up behind her, we always wondered why she was up there. Whether she was up there as kind of a spy or up there to get some kind of information. We always kind of wondered about her. She was very friendly and nice, and we took her around different places with us, but we were always kind of wondering why she was up there. We never could really figure it out. She didn't seem to have any real job like the rest of them. Well, here's the church that we were talking about earlier today. This is the church at F. Palmer. And when I was teaching in school at Wasilla, I would come down weekends and help peel the logs to build that church. And about 4 weeks ago, we had a magazine come to our house here in Clatskanie. And I opened the magazine and turned a few pages. And here was a picture of the inside of this church and a little story about how this church was built out of logs and how Bingo had undertaken that project. And I had the chance to help peel those logs. This is up in the Matanuska Valley, one of the fields that we went by, and somebody had them all stacked up. Way back now, see some white low down, that's Kinnick Glacier. And, that was kind of an unusual thing. There would be a big lake built up behind that every spring, and then the ice would break, and then there'd be a flood going down the Kinnick River. Almost took out the bridge from that. Not on that one. At least they didn't in those days, but they might have. This must be Sitka. And you're looking across to Japonski Island. They're showing. Well, to the right, yes. They had a field that you could land on the island. There's a bridge across there now, but when we were there, we just had to go across on a boat and go over to Constant. This is a log cabin that the principal of our school at Palmer had. And he invited the faculty to come out for a picnic one time, so we got a picture of us all out there. Here's that long church again, and this is Reverend Ramsey and his wife and over. And here's that church in the wintertime when it's got some snow on it. Well, this is down at Kinnick. This isn't with the public health nurse, this is with some teachers from Anchorage that wanted to get down there. These are great big chunks of ice that go up and down when the tide's out now, but the tide comes in and floats those big chunks of ice. And then they bump together and it sounds like thunder out there. And this is one of the teachers that down there. You can see all the chunks of ice and so, now this is Kinnick Glacier, but in a different place, farther up the river. It's all ice. This is winter. It was kind of cold when we were down there. We were climbing up on some of the ice. This wasn't very dangerous there. The ice wasn't moving very much. Harold's secretary leading the gun. There was a cable that went across the Matanuska River, and you could get on the bucket and go across the river on the bucket. You'd slide down to the middle pretty easy, but you didn't want to get your hands in where the pulley went. And then you'd have to pull yourself up to the next landing on the other side. And boy, sometimes it was real hard pulling. You really had to work at it.
What was on the other side? Why would you do that?
Well, we get up to the different mines and we get to different places where they wanted to go.
no other way to get across the river.
No, it was too hard to get across with boats. It was a pretty treacherous river. I don't know how they got the cable across in the first place. But they carried a lot of freight on these little buckets across the river. Well, one day we went up to, hiked up Lazy Mountain, and this old fellow had this cabin up here. And one of the teachers, and this was this Kay again, and the public health nurse, Helen Johnson.
Which one is she?
Helen Johnson, she's on the right. And when we first got up there and hollered, and the fellow came out to the door and we talked a bit about the weather, and I stayed, and all that, and he said, "Is the war still on?" We didn't have any radio or any communication. We wanted a little bit of news about the world. This Pioneer Peak again. Well, we climbed up the butte. There was kind of a spot in the Matanuska Valley, this big hunk of dirt up there. We call it the butte. And we climb up on there and took a picture of Pioneer Peak from there. We were out in another, I think that was another town. That may have been that Fells Cabin. I think maybe it was in his sled. Stuck in the mud, trying to get up to the mines. In the wintertime, we went up with a catapult in a sled. We get on the back on this sled and the caterpillar would pull us up. That's the only kind of ski that we have. She's out in the snow trying to get some pictures. Yeah, it is. The car is stuck in the mud over there.
Is that Helen Johnson again?
Mm-hmm. That's Helen.
That's you on the left, Irma.
Yeah, I'm on the left and Helen Johnson's on the right and Kate's on the right. I don't know, I took this picture to show that we didn't have any hardware stores where you could go and buy new handles. The handle broke off this saw, and the fellow needed his saw, so he made himself a handle for his saw. That's upside down. There are two together. This is on the way up to one of the mines. This was a coal mine up this road. This is Helen Johnson in her car, and we're down at Kimball. You can see how bad my camera got. The light kept getting in there, and well, I couldn't use the camera too long after that. In this picture, you can see the wires. You can see some wires going up from the right, and they go way up into the top of the hill, and that's where they're mining up there. And the cars run up and down that wire. They send the car up, and they load it up with ore and let it slide down to the buildings down here.
Looks like a lot of snow.
Yeah, a lot of snow, good skiing up there. But we didn't have any skiers, so you had to get yourself around. That's one of the dog that I had at, when I taught school at, Wasilla. Poncho. I think he's Poncho.
How long did you have?
Didn't have him very long, but I had him, I was sure glad I had him while I was leaving that little cabin. Well, this is back in Sitka. This is the bridge across Sawmill Creek. Kim was just a little tiny toddler, about like Nathan is now. He got away from me one day and started across that bridge, and the bridge was icy. And we were scared that day. We got him. This is Sawmill Creek. the bridge of the, this is looking out over Silver Bay. And see the cross up in the mountain? That's Cross Mountain. In this, it showed up most of the year, but when the snow was heavy on the mountain, it didn't show. But it's formed a cross up in there.
Was this the bay that your farm was on in Sitka?
Yes, our farm is on this bay.
How long was that bay?
Oh, it's long, way up in there. There were some people that had gold mine way up in there. This is the road out to the, from Sitka out to the dairy. Sometimes the snow would get so deep we couldn't tell where the road was underneath, and sometimes you didn't know whether you were driving out over the bay or if you were on the road.
Is that Cross Mountain with snow on it?
No, I don't think, I think Cross Mountain's out the other one. This was about all the pasture we had. There was a little chunk of land between our house and Sawmill Creek. I don't think that was all of our cows. More of our cows. Here's where we had, shows how much snow we had here in Sitka.
That shows a bit more of the house too. It shows the upstairs on the house
Shows more snow.
and the windows on the back of the house.
We shoveled off the snow so that it saved the roof. This other little old house, they had more slanted roofs, and it would slide off of that.
So you had to get up on the top of the house on the flat roof.
And shovel off the snow, and it got too heavy. You can see the clothespins, those little spots in the snow there, and the clothespins on the clothesline.
So the snow is all the way up the top of the clothesline.
Yeah. There's the barns up there, and the cows down on the beach.
Where were the cows milked?
In the barn, I think.
With the red roof?
Yes.
A lot of snow.
You can see the big window in the house, just the top of the window there, and how the snow is piled up. Some of that is from shoveling, to get the road out. You had to shovel the snow and pile it.
So Grandpa had to shovel snow like that through the winter to get the milk to town every day?
After a good snowstorm. No snow.
There's a yellow pickup.
And it's backed up to the milk house to get the milk out and get loaded up, ready to go to town.
How often did Grandpa take milk to town?
Every day. Every day we took it to town.
Was the yellow pickup what we used to go back and forth to town?
Then we had the yellow pickup. For a while we had a kind of a van. And then we had the yellow pickup. Sometimes we had another car too. At one time. But our family got too big to travel on that yellow thing. Snow was kind of deep here too. Taken from the house looking towards the milk house. That was inside rooms. They're upside down or something. What's the matter with that? No, this one's all right. This is the ice sickle. Before we went to,
How come there's an icicle there?
well, you nailed it off the roof and it goes. And you can see the creek that down in the left-hand corner down there. You can see where the creek came, the little tiny creek that ran through the yard. There's the kids playing in the early snow. shows the old building with picture taken from our house. Oh, this is taken across on top of Sugarloaf. Interesting thing. See up there the lake in the side of the mountain? There's a lake up in there. And that's Sawmill Creek coming down there, and our buildings are off the side there. Can you see them?
Yes, just to the right of the mouth of the stream.
Yes, yes.
And then that road is the one going back into Sitka.
Into Sitka. You can see it follow along the side.
I think this picture is in backwards.
Backwards.
You see, that's the Silver Bay.
Yes, Silver Bay. And the picture's taken from the top of Sugarloaf. At Sitka, they had a real nice Russian Orthodox church. And this is inside the Russian Orthodox church. And they had some beautiful icons there. And during the war, they took those icons out of the church and buried them up on the hill behind town, and trying to protect them in case something should happen. And then years later, the building caught on fire, and this whole church burned. They saved some of the things from it, but they couldn't save the whole building. And then they were without a building for a while. But then people in town, out at the school, and merchants in town, all went together and raised money and have rebuilt the church. And they were fortunate enough that they had the original plans. So the new church is built in exactly the same way the original church was. This is the Russian Orthodox church.
What's the mountain in the back?
That's for Stoughton. Goes to Stoughton. This is the Russian Orthodox church. Here's a plane coming into Sitka. And the building on the right and the boat there is pilot to the cold storage plant where they bring the fish in and freeze them. That's Mount Edgecombe. The way this This is Palmer's getting ready to go out on their boat. No, it's Troll. This is a boat getting ferried out in Silver Bay. They've got the, you can see the corks holding the net up on the into the water there. They put this net around this school of herring and pull them in together and then bail them out into the boat. Why the seagulls fly over there, they try to get a herring. There's Cross Mountain again. This is Sitka with the Pioneer Home. It looks like some grand hotel here. Some tourists come to town and want to get a room there. It's for a home for the old timers. The building to the left is up on the hill way off to the left. But then there's a smaller building that has kind of a tower. That's the old Presbyterian church that Dad used to. But when they didn't, when they combined the churches, this building was not used, and they turned it into a home for their women, old time women.
Up on the hill to the left, is at the Baranoff Castle.
Yes. Mhm. This is the campus, there's school campus at Sedgwick, SJS, Sheldon Jackson Junior College. It's a full college, right? Oh, this is part of the school too. You can see the engineering building. And then the church building, that was,
That's the red and white building in the center of the picture.
yes, that's the church my dad had when he first went to, Sitka. And that building has been taken down, and there's a big new library built there, a beautiful new library.
And that's that Cross Mountain up above there.
No, Cross Mountain doesn't show from there. It's not Cross Mountain up there, isn't it? But it shouldn't show from there. Winter time at the campus.
Okay. Go on.
This shows Sitka with, on the right is the Greek Orthodox Church and Russian Orthodox Church. And then the red building in the center there is the R&R Market. That was partly ours. We were in partnership with another fellow. And we had to keep the store as payment for some of the milk that we had been delivering there when they were bankrupt. So we got a store, but our partner for the store ran the store for us. And behind is Mount Pretoria. Another picture of Pioneer Home. In front of this home there is a statue of the old pioneer. It's a beautiful statue of the old pioneer. This is out at the National Park, where they have the totem park.
Were those totems there when you were up?
Yes, they were. But the park has been updated and fixed up, and we've got some new buildings built there. This is looking up Silver Bay. It's not a very good picture. Another picture of Sitka looking out at Mount Edgecombe.
It's a perfect volcanic peak that many people think looks like Mount Fuji in Japan.
Yes, a lot of people say it's very much like it. This is in Sitka. This is backwards too. I'm kind of twisted up because it's backwards. Out on the left here, where the doctor built a house out there and built a little walkway out to it. It was kind of a little island. And then Mother and Dad had their house in this group of buildings. I think it was on the other side, the back side of those.
So they lived on the pilings out over the water.
Yes.
This is where when Grandpa and Grandma were retired, living in Sitka.
Mm-hmm. They came there after we moved here. This is in front of the little house that they were living in. And Grandma has her flower box there, and this is when Aunt Julie was visiting. And so it's Harold and Grandpa Bromley, and Grandma Bromley, and Aunt Julie, and then our three little boys.
And that was Grandma Bromley's sister.
Yes,
Her name was Julie Brathen,
Jean Brown.
and she was a teacher, wasn't she?
Yes, she taught school in North Dakota. And
In Fargo, North Dakota. Williston,
Wilson.
Williston, North Dakota.
This is Grandma and Grandpa in front of their door again. The snow was covering the flower boxes. I mean, Grandma always had flowers in these ones, but in the wintertime they covered with snow. Those are the mountains up at Haynes. Up here, Cosmos.
Where is that?
Is that in the Sitka house?
Trying to figure that out. I think that was in Sitka.
The house in town we lived in for a while?
That could be too. This is Grandma Bertha Bromley. This was taken down here in Seattle sometime.
Was that at their 50th wedding anniversary?
No, I don't think so, because we had that up at the farm. This wasn't up here.
I remember that dress that Grandma wore. That was one of her good dresses for
Maybe
many years.
this, this is Lauren. We have a lot of pictures of Ken Carter. Very new Lauren and this one.
That hat on that Clark is wearing on the right,
Yes,
that was a Japanese army hat that somehow had been acquired in her family.
well, we had this Japanese boy that worked for us for a while. And all the kids just loved that guy. He loved the kids too. He was real good with them. And I think that's where they inherited that.
That hat was around the farm when we were growing up in Mount Vernon until, well, after I went to college, and I think it was probably there until he moved away from the farm.
Probably. This was after Harold and I were married, and we were in Seattle. And happened to be one of the teachers that I taught school with was living there, and she had a little party for us.
Grandpa was a sergeant in the army.
Yes, he was still in the army. This is like a beach. Seems like we're there for beach parties, picnics.
There's a little table with one of the kids in it.
Yeah, that was a little fold-up table, and the legs of that folded up, and had a little seat in the middle of it with a table around. We used that for all the kids, or they liked that. And sure a handy thing you could take along with you.
He had that when Don was a baby. I remember envying that at the farm in Skagit County.
Oh, yeah.
Looks like Grandma has on a long skirt. Did she wear long dresses too?
Yeah, they were pretty long. And this is where we started. This was the Rainbow Glacier.
We stopped there for now. Where the stopping point here.